the more things change, the more they stay the same. We're still having the same conversation we've had before. It boggles my mind how this is still the same thing that we're talking about. If I go and pull up my channel, when it really started to take off back in 2023, 2024, we were still talking about this, PvP versus PvE. And I guess the question that I have to ask myself is, have my opinions changed? And I don't think they have. The thing that I argued for in these videos back then was that medium, high, and low security systems would go a long way to solve it, and so would instanced content. So I want to talk about those two aspects of Star Citizen and look at how they are going to be the answer that a lot of people are looking for. That's a spoiler. That wasn't supposed to play just yet. So let's pull up Photoshop where I've got some things prepared for you. And let's start with low security. Low security we know pretty well in Pyro. It's minimal enforcement, limited or armistice zones. There's no NPC backups when you get attacked. It's high risk, high reward. It's the definition of it, right? It's very PvP focused, and it also exacerbates the issues that we're seeing with PvE content, okay? PvE content, I think people typically think of mining, cargo gameplay, and stuff like that, but it's actually quite a bit more than that. Bunkers are PvE content. There is a whole PvE side of the contested zones that gets severely hampered by the PvP side of it. For example, as someone who is recently dipping their toes into contested zones, what I've seen consistently is dead bodies on the floor, broken freight elevators, broken fuse doors, and broken card doors. This is the biggest challenge towards actually getting the 7 comp boards that you need to get a ship at the exchange. For instance, I spent a whole week trying to get number 7 because when you are going through Obituary Contested Zone, there is one fuse door that seemed to consistently break and I could not figure out a way past it. I would even try doing the exploit that a lot of people are trying to do to use an armor crate to get past the door. Couldn't get it to work for me. But you couldn't flick the fuse out, you couldn't put a new fuse in, nothing was working. And so for that aspect of the PvE side of a contested zone to get destroyed essentially by the PvP side of it because another player had gone through and either intentionally or not had broken the door, that really sucks. And it's a great example of what happens in other kinds of PvE content currently. When you go do a bunker mission, how often are there bodies already on the floor and all the good loot is already gone? It's pretty frequently. And this is going to continue to happen unless there is an actual answer to help protect the integrity of a PvE experience. And if we look at our high security systems, like Terra, for instance, if you are attacked in these areas, there should be a rapid response from NPCs to back you up. There's a liberal armistice zone placed throughout the system. There's maximum enforcement of the laws. It's very low risk, low reward because it is PvE focused. But I think that there is a pretty big gradient to that as well because you can have very challenging PvE content that could give you high reward. It's just that if you're talking cargo trading and that's it, that is inherently low risk in a high security system, and so the reward should equally be very low. And there should essentially be no PvP in a high security system. Of the 3 types that we have, these 2 are the easiest to create. High security, it's a pretty easy blanket statement. No PvP, you do everything you can to ensure that PvP does not occur in these systems. Low security, it's the exact opposite. You take off all the handcuffs and you say, go nuts. And a system like Stanton is actually much more challenging because it's somewhere in the middle. There's a level of legal enforcement in a system like Stanton. There's some PvP, PvE mixing of activities. There's not a specific focus either way. It's moderate risk, moderate reward, and it's supposed to just sit somewhere in the middle. There's lots of ways that they could go about working towards this that would make the system better. And I think that Stanton is in a perfect spot right now, having Pyro next to it, to be a good test bed for the things that will keep a system like Terra much safer. In previous videos, I've talked about implementing something akin to the Architect Towers in Halo 3 Sandbox. And if you don't know, basically if you go outside the map boundaries, you get one-tapped by the Architect Towers, and it says as much when you die. You just get deleted instantly. It's pretty cool. And you could easily just increase the damage applied by turrets in Stanton and create a bubble of safety where any hostile player is kept out and they get one shot when they break that boundary. The problem is, even when you do as much as you can to make a system like Stanton safe in that regard, there is always going to be a way to break it. And Space Cutlet released this video recently, and this was not the focus of his video, but it shows a perfect example of what I'm talking about. In this video talking about the Hull C exploit, they show that they were able to get a player to be recognized as hostile by ramming into it. So they did the hostile action, and this other player is now paying the price. Space Cutlet rightly points out that this is an issue, this shouldn't be happening this way, and I tend to agree. If you are ramming into other players, you should be recognized as hostile, not the other way around. But what this shows is that there's always going to be some kind of fringe case where it's not going to be very clear. There is going to be some way to exploit the law. And so it's not going to be perfect. Rather, your goal in a medium security zone is to limit these negative interactions and limit the exploits that can occur. It's not to eliminate it. So then, if these areas are always general population, and the PvE experience is always held back by being part of a shared space, what is the answer? People recently have brought up PvE servers again, and I do not agree with this assessment. I think PvE servers are a backwards idea that will not solve the problem, and it will only continue to exacerbate the issue, increase animosity between the two major camps, and will increase the development overhead significantly to achieve very marginal gains. I don't think it's actually the answer people are looking for. So what is the answer? Instancing. And that is what CIG presented in this last CitizenCon. Instancing takes you from being part of the general population of a server to now you are in a space that is yours and yours alone, or yours and your friends alone, right? Only the people that you invite are now part of this space. And so let's let the man talk and explain it in his own words.
Play spaces right now. So we're continuing the Building Interior Initiative. We're adding additional districts to landing zones, which are gameplay focused. These gameplay areas will interweave with the landing zone, but ultimately will be independent. So for Area 18, let me introduce you to the Municipal Works. And this will be split into two locations. The actual Municipal Works, which will be an open world sandbox area for all players, and the lower Municipal Works, known locally as the Depths, which will comprise of several instanced levels. So, how do I get to the Municipal Works? The Municipal Works is accessible in multiple places in Area 18. Some will be available to everyone, and some you'll need to unlock with mission progression. As an example, here's a map of Area 18 Central. And as I said, there'll be various access points throughout the landing zone, and some will be easier to access than others. These access points will lead to transit systems, taking you deep into the underbelly, eventually reaching the Municipal Works. And the Municipal Works will have spaces like maintenance, filtration, and the sewer network, which is what we're seeing here. It's a very exotic place. So down here, it's an open world sandbox for you and other players, very similar to contested zones in pyro stations. It's an area to do local missions, like exploration, repair, or even pest control. But the main purpose is provide access to the depths, and these will be instanced areas. So, what is an instance area? Well, an instance area works in the same way as an instanced hangar. And as the name says, it's a separate space for you and your group. But why do we want to do this? This gives us the ability to create tailored missions that will provide a mixture of content, like combat or exploration or puzzle gameplay, and fundamentally allows us to design challenging, meaningful content. All right, so let me illustrate.
Not nearly enough applause for what is potentially the single greatest influence to this whole conversation surrounding PvPvE. Instanced content is the answer that you're looking for. It allows you to have, it gives you a way to protect the integrity of a PvE experience because you can limit who's able to get into it. If it's just you and your friends, when you go in there, there's not going to be a puzzle that is already solved. There's going to be new things for you to discover that no one else has seen yet because it is your special area. It is perfect. That's going to sound stupid. I need to rephrase that. It doesn't increase developmental overhead. It allows everyone to remain in a shared space, and it doesn't fragment the community the same way that a PvE server would. Okay. Servers, not a good solution. Instance content, this gives you the same effect that you're looking for, but without all of those negative side effects. And so let's give a little breakdown of what that looks like. I've used this example before in other videos. Destiny 2 has what's called a lost sector. And basically when you're at a landing zone, you can go through a door, cave, or whatever it is, and now you are part of a instanced lost sector. There's no one else in there but you and your fire team. And this allows you to experience that instance sector as if it were new each time you step in there. In a case like Star Citizen, you could do something very similar. And that's why something like the Transit Refactor that is upcoming is so important, because these transitory spaces are the ways that you are going to get into other instanced content. General population is places like Stanton and Pyro as they exist right now, with the exception of instanced hangars. When you step into an elevator, airlock, you do a quantum jump, or you go through a jump point, or you go through a door. These are all opportunities for the game to place you into a instanced environment. And the benefit of that is, unlike the general population area where there's always a risk of PvP, and the PvE content suffers because of that, now you're in an area where there is zero risk of PvP, or a perfectly adjustable level of PvP. If you want one other player to be able to get into there, you can make that happen. You can put a cap on it directly through these various means. And now the PvE content is uncapped. You can have it be incredibly complex. You can have scalable difficulty because the NPCs are the ones driving this difficulty, and that's a knob that they can turn. And you can increase the puzzle complexity because you can make sure that your players have enough time to solve them. If you go to an asteroid base today, most of the time the crate is already in the right spot. And if you've gone to an asteroid base, you know what I'm talking about. The puzzle is already solved. But in a instanced PvE location, you can ensure that you and your friends have a good experience every single time you step in. And it's not just the municipal areas of Area 18. This greatly expands into other parts of Star Citizen and will provide lasting PvE experiences that players will enjoy for years to come. And there's lots of experiences that we could look at today that probably would be better as a instanced version. Siege of Orison is a great example, because how often did that break because someone didn't do the steps completely exactly right the way CIG had initially laid them out? How many times does a bunker mission break because someone has already been there? There's lots of examples where PvE content can come in and nest quite easily in a game like Star Citizen and enhance the PvE experience without destroying the PvPvE environment in which we all exist. Later on in the same day of presentations, they talk about Star Citizen 1.0 and their plans for that. And they mention instanced fleet battles. So just like I say here, you can have a quantum jump take you to an instanced location where you and a group of friends get to fight off against a massive fleet of enemy ships. And you can have a tailored, curated experience each and every time. This is how you can get dramatic cinematic sequences that play out consistently every time a player discovers them. And this is how you can prevent other players from being able to, either on purpose or accidentally, destroy the experience for another player. Instance fleet battles, municipal works, We could also look at cave networks. Maybe you're on Daymar and you step into a cave, and now you're in an instanced battle with a Valakar worm in this cave. That is another opportunity. Instancing allows you to have a plethora of PvE experiences that we can't have today, and protect them from the general population and ensure that they are repeatable, reliable, and scalable. This allows us to have what people are looking for with the PvE slider without breaking the game and fragmenting the community like a slider or server would do. So to wrap up my thoughts, servers, really bad idea. It is a non-starter, it will not solve the problem, and it will ultimately lead to slower development, increased development overhead, and a worse outcome for the game overall. It's not the way we want to go. PvE slider, same thing. It's not going to fix the problem like you think it would. It will only create more problems, and it will fragment the community and feed into more animosity, and it will destroy the game as it stands currently. If you want to have protected PvE experiences, which I think we should have, instancing is a much more organic way to accomplish that without all the side effects of a PvP server or slider. It allows us to get the benefits of both without destroying either. There's still a long way to go in the terms of law enforcement in medium and high security systems, and I think that CIG should push Stanton to be higher security for the time being as a way of testing and getting that data. But regardless of how good they make a system like that, there will always be a way to exploit it. Instancing is the only trump card that I see that allows you to ensure a good PvE experience in a game like Star Citizen.